Hello everybody, my name is Alan, I'm from Saber Lab, and today will be another video about Docker. In this video specific, we're not going to install any Docker container, but we're going to explain how work different types of Docker network and how this can help you or make your life easy. At the moment, everyone agrees that Docker is a fantastic tool that have lots of applications, really lightweight, and you can do a lot of things with this. Also, if you don't like the application, you can only uninstall and all the data will be kept if you want, or will be erased according for your needs. But until now, I didn't explain so much about the network. I have a previous video where I show how you can connect Proxy Manager with Nextcloud with all these applications in the same network. In this way, you didn't need to open any extra port apart for the port 88 and 443. This one is more useful for a VPS when you're using it. But now I will start to explain a little bit more for you do your decisions with Russian, or at least understand what you want to achieve. So if you like this idea and want to learn a little bit more about it, we're gonna show this video. But first of all, don't forget to leave your like, consider subscribe for the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's understand a little bit more about it. So before we start to explain what different types of network that you can have in Docker, we need to understand what is Docker. Docker basically it's a platform or software product for virtualizations. And this virtualization means that each container will be a different virtual system. But before we start to confuse, let's come here in my schematic. So in one of my previous videos, I show how you can install Proxmox for you be able to create different virtual machines for different applications. Basically, Docker will be really similar for this with some slight difference, in my opinion, some improvements. So Proxmox, they will have the host, and in the host they will have different virtual machines. Those virtual machines, you need to define how big or what's the capacity for this virtual machine. So if you come here, one of the virtual machine have 1 core and 2 GB of RAM. The second one, 1 core and 2 GB of RAM, and the third one, it's 1 core and again 2 GB of RAM. Suppose that the virtual machine 2 need a little bit more memory. They need 3 or 4 GB of RAM, but this virtual machine 1, it's use only 1, and the other virtual machine 3 is use only 1. Potentially, they could share this 1 GB for each one, for all the applications work in 100% of RAM memory or 100% of CPU and continue on. But virtual machines don't work this way, or Proxmox don't work this way. They will not share capacity. Different for the container, for a Docker container, it's they will have same idea, different virtualizations, but those virtualizations will share the amount of RAM memory and amount of CPU. So in this one, if they had 3 cores available and 6 GB of RAM, they still have exactly the same. 3 cores available and 6 GB of RAM, but with a slight difference. The difference that you're gonna have is that anyone can use those shared memories. So if this virtualization 1 or this container 1 use 1 GB of RAM and half core, and the 3 exactly the same, 1 GB of RAM and half core, this one potentially can use 4 GB of RAM and 2 cores, and that they will pump up the applications and they can use according for the needs. Of course, if your computer is not strong enough, all this application will run slow, but at least they will have a shared capacity for each one. So have this one in mind. Now we can start to work with our networks, and our networks basically will happen in this follow way. You have different networks that will be insulated between themselves. Imagine that you have different routers working, and each router will have one network, other network, other network, and those will be part of the host. To do this explanation, we need to have a machine that works with Docker. I have two options. The first option, I can have a physical computer that run it, or I can have a virtual machine only to explain. And in my case, I will use a virtual machine because it's much easier and save lots of time. So here I have a VirtualBox where I have two machines already created. The ones that we're gonna use, it's this one, Saber Lab, and if I come here in settings and come in system, I have 3 GB of RAM and 1 processor. Before we go ahead, if you don't know what I'm talking, a little bit lost, please look for the video in the description where I show how you can use the VirtualBox for your virtual machine and how great is it. Now, continue, we have 2 processors, and if I come here in my network, I have my bridge network. Why I didn't choose to use NAT? Because I wanted to bridge my network from this machine for my physical card. In this way, my router will understand that that one is a physical computer that's running. Otherwise, they will be on a local network and that will not be able to do all the application that I want. So I will leave as a bridge, and then I can start my virtual machine. It has Ubuntu installed. I don't need to be Ubuntu, but I need to have Linux installed in order to run well with Docker. I have already Docker installed. I install a simple revision of Docker and I install Portainer. Why install Portainer? Because I want to show you in a graphic way, not necessarily only commands that you can use. So in this way, once that the machine start, we can check the IP address for this machine and that's open Portainer in order to explain a little bit more about what type of networks. So now in this login page, I will do Saber Lab. If I put IP address, show, they will show all the IP address that I have. So in the first one, I have my IO that I don't care about it. I have my bridge, my network that's directly connected for my ENP0S3, that will be my card, my motherboard card, and I have my Docker here. And I have another container that I don't need to worry about it, but the ones that I need to worry is the Docker. And here if you look, they have a IP address, and here it's my IP address that's 172.17.0.1. So have this one in mind. The IP address for this machine, it's end with 142, so we'll open this IP address. Once that you open your Portainer, they will show this page where they will give overview for you. So in this way, I'm using my admin user. I have my environmental with 2 cores and 3 GB of RAM. I have 1 stack, 1 container, 2 image, 2 volumes. What I want to know is my network. So if I click here in network, as a standard, as a system networks, they will come with 3 networks. The first one, bridge, second one, host, and the last one, node. No, I don't need to say anything, it's nothing. No drive connect, nothing connect for this one, so basically they will not connect anywhere. It will be standalone, lock in their own system, and nothing will come, nothing will go out, no internal traffic, no external traffic, no possibility for ping, nothing. So this one, it's only if you really need to have a proper isolate application that you don't want to connect external anyhow, so this is the best option. Otherwise, I don't see the point to use this. No. Now, the first one that we're gonna explain properly is the bridge. So in order to explain better, I give a little bit a schematic system to explain. So here it's my host, where I have the own network host that it's working there as a virtual machine, and that I have my Docker. My Docker, as a standard, they will create a bridge network. This bridge network, it's exactly the same as the Docker, what they give exactly the same IP address. So if I come here back, I have my bridge where it's the bridge for my host. Imagine that's an insulated network. This network do not have contact for the top network because they are insulating the bottom here, but all the applications that inside this network will have communication between themselves. So imagine that container 1, container 2, container 3 will have their own IP address, own configuration, and that all of those will be able to communicate with the Docker, but do not be able to communicate directly with the host because they are in a standalone system. Good thing for it that each container can communicate for each one. So what's the advance for it? Imagine that you have any reverse proxy or NGX proxy manager or anything that you want, and you want to get external access or SSL certification for some specific application. So you want that Google or any specific application will have connection for this NGX proxy manager. So in this way I have WordPress, and this WordPress needed to go through my proxy manager to have external access for the internet. I have my Nextcloud, I have other things, but in the same time I don't want that those have a contact with my host. Only problem for it that when you run bridge, if you don't allow this port to be open, they will not be open and they will not be seen. So if I come here and I come for MarianeDB, one thing that you can do for allow that this port have external, it's open that port. And to open that port is simple. It's in your application you put port, your external port and your internal port. This internal port you can change as much as you want. The external port you shouldn't change because it will be specific for the application. So the internal port for the application will be 3306, what they need to communicate, and here you can define anything. Otherwise, if you don't do it, they will be basically standalone isolate. But imagine that you have the bridge, but you want to have another bridge. You want to have those applications, but you want to have a second set of applications. All of those work in bridge, but not communicate between themselves. It's simple. You can create your own application, and this one is the second type of network that you can have. So the second type of network, if you come here and add network, we can put as a home. We can keep as a bridge. We have other options we're gonna explain soon, but we can keep as a bridge. And here you can define the IP address. As a bridge, you can leave it empty, they will auto-define, otherwise you can define yourself. In my case, I will leave to auto-define. And now I put create a network. As I told, they will create a network with different IP address, but the same drive bridge. And what is good for it? And I will come here and I will explain. Imagine that I create my bridge home. And here my bridge home, they will be my bridge and my bridge home with different IP address. So that's initial bridge will be this one, and my second bridge will be this one, and two networks. Those networks don't communicate directly for my host. They are standalone, insulated themselves, but all the applications between them, they will communicate. So imagine that you have a WordPress, database, you have, I don't know, Nextcloud, and everything you want to keep in one network, and you have other applications like Radar, Sonar, Plex, and other things in other application. Suppose that one of the networks or one of the application has a problem and has compromise. So this network has been invaded. Only the applications that's inside this network will be in risk because they don't communicate between themselves. Unless you permit it, and what is not come as a standard, or you put common applications that can transmit, they will not be able to identify it. Either that someone could manage to access this specific network where we'll have your WordPress, they will not be able to see your library, or will be able to connect to your Plex server, or other things. So this is the good thing, they are insulated between themselves. And you can create as many as you want in order to make it to work well. So have this one. The next type of network that you can have is the host. As the name already say, host. So if I come here, they will be basically the same connection as your host. So I have my first network, I have my second network, and I have an application that connects directly for the host. For those two applications, if you want to expose some ports, you need to define which port that you want to expose. If you want that they communicate between one to another, you need to allow that both communicate. In the case of the host, it's totally different. It's basically your computer here and your container exactly in the same level. So they will be able to communicate directly for the router anytime that they want, and that they will basically make a link directly. And you don't need to open ports, you don't need to do a lot of things. This one, it's really good if you're working with a virtual machine and you don't want to have those IP address or those ports configured. So if you have a web server or web host, you can connect as a host, and that they will simulate that will go directly for router or directly for the external access it. It's good for one thing, it's bad for other things, but it's an option. Have this one in mind. We explain basically the three types, but remember that when we go to add a new network have different types. Yes, and what we're gonna show now. If you come here, add network, and come here, we have IP VLAN and MAC VLAN. And you're gonna ask, Alan, what's the difference between both? It's simple. If I come here my Mac VLAN and I come here Mac, what they will do, they will ask your parent network card. And why I want to do it? I will add my parent network, exactly the same, and I will create the same subnet and gateway from my physical router. Don't create an alternative one, you need to create for your physical router. Why you need to create it? Because basically they will connect directly for router. So if I come here, my MAC address, all those containers networks still exist, they will still able to run it, but those will be theoretically connect directly for your router. They will jump the host and go directly for your router. Have some problems for it? Yes. Have some benefit? Yes. I will say the benefit, each application will have their own MAC address, the only IP address, and will be located as a totally different application. Suppose that your host have IP address 192.168.1.5, the container one, 3, will have IP address 192.168.1.6 and 0.7, and each one will be different names because basically they are linked. But because they simulate that they have connection only for one network, what's the problem for it? Your router will identify that one port have multiple MAC address, and this one sometimes have conflicts. And to avoid it, you need to open the promiscuous mode. And this promiscuous mode is something that makes your system a little bit unsecure. So if I come here and search promiscuous mode, they will give that it's a secret system or secret monitor, but this one will make your system unsafe. Anyway, if you want to use it, not for production, but only for trials and tests, what you can do, if you go here and try to use this system, do not work because you need to permit it. So in the case of a virtual machine, you can come here in settings, network, advanced, and you need to allow it. Once that you allowed, then you're gonna be able to communicate. Otherwise, they will be insulated and no one or not will be able to go out from your system. So have this one in mind. Next stage that you have IP VLAN L2 and L3. In this video I will not show the L3 because not everyone have the option to configure your router in order to make it work. Otherwise I could show, but some specific routers will not allow it. So to be easy, I will leave for IP VLAN L2. If you guys have any questions or want to learn a little bit more about L3 options, that will be a sub-level, and then you can create a virtual router to make it. Yes, I will show, but leave your comment. So return here. Now the next option that you can have is IP VLAN L2. And this one, if I come here in my container and put add, here I have an option for VLAN. So I'll look at my name and will be pretty much the same as the Mac. You need to create a physical address the same way that your router has, and you need to define the limits for it. But the difference is that instead of they have a specific MAC address for it, I will come here back, they will have only IP address specific, and your host will be the router. So how will it gonna work? You have the network 1, network 2 that they are isolated, but those they are communicated directly for your host, and your host will manage the MAC address and the IP address and give for them. For your router, each machine will have different IP address, but not necessarily different MAC address. And this one they will control by the host. It's another option, better option than the MAC address, and you still have the same option, same information. Your host will have the IP address 192.168.1.5, and your container will have 192.168.1.6. Exactly the same, but you don't need to go from promiscuous mode, you don't need to go for any unprotected system, because your host is managing this part, and your router understands that each application will have different IP address, and that they will connect directly here. So basically they connect here directly to have the IP address, but the manager of the MAC and the IP address will be your host. So it's another option that you can have if you want to have different IP address for each machine based on the host system. So if I come here back, as I configure, if I configure here, this is all the options that you can have. So you can have the bridge, you can have your own bridge or name bridge for control it, you can have your IP VLAN, you can have your MAC VLAN, you can have your host, or you can have no network connection at all. So in this video I explained different ways to configure your system. I hope that you guys like this video. If you like this video, please don't forget to leave your comment. If you don't like, please leave your comment anyway. Subscribe for the channel and see you next time. Bye.